Welcome back. We are connecting you to Congress today here on Little Rock Arc. I spoke with Arkansas's 4th District Congressman Bruce Westerman recently about the issues that matter to you, like immigration and the future of the Department of Education. Here's what he had to say. Well, Representative Westerman, thanks so much for joining me here today. We know you recently signed on to a bill that is aimed at improving rural health care. How will this affect Arkansas?
Well, this is a program through USDA that's specifically targeted for rural hospitals. We see all the challenges that rural communities are facing. It's hard to get healthcare workers in these rural areas, and unfortunately we're seeing services reduced at our rural hospitals. We want to do everything we can to keep these hospitals open and keep the services available. There's some other stuff that I'm working on as well that could possibly get into the reconciliation bill. You know, Arkansas is at a big disadvantage on Medicare reimbursement rates, and I've been working quite a while trying to be able to adjust those rates to be at least equal to the states around us.
And we know with your position as chairman on the House Committee on Natural Resources, we know that you have a lot of work to do with the reconciliation bill. Tell us what your main focus is on that.
So under the Natural Resources Committee, we're focused mainly on our natural resources, which unlike a lot of committees that are having to look at ways to cut spending, when we use our natural resources, it actually generates more revenue for the federal government. So you can think of it as two sides of the income statement or the balance sheet. We're working on generating more revenues through using these resources like energy. And we're also looking at ways to make the government more efficient on the spending side. But predominantly through the energy policy, we want to be able to produce more American energy, which will produce more revenue for the federal government and help balance the budget.
And kind of turning to a hot topic right now, I know that you've previously visited our border with deportation topping headlines right now. Is this crisis an urgent threat?
It definitely is, and it's much better now. The numbers, the illegal crossing numbers, are in the tank from where they have been in the past. The Trump administration has really gone in and focused on securing the border. But one thing a lot of people don't realize about the border, about 40% of the border is on federal lands, which falls under the Natural Resources Committee jurisdiction. And we've got a bill called the Flash Act that would allow roads to be constructed along the border. There's places where the only way you can get to it is to go in by helicopter, walk in, or ride a horse in. And some of the land use restrictions prevent the Border Patrol from actually being able to do their job. So it's an all-out effort to get our border secure. And it's not just the illegals that are coming in, it's the drugs that are flooding into our country. You know, we've got a fentanyl crisis on our hands. About 300 people a day in America die from a fentanyl overdose. It'd be like a large airplane crashing every day. And I think if that was happening, people would be demanding that something changes.
And I know with the Flash Act, that's something that's meant to aid Trump's response to immigration. Why did you all think that aid was necessary, that additional aid?
So we were working on this long before President Trump was elected in this term. It was one of the first things I noticed when I went to the border years ago and flew the Arizona sector with the Border Patrol. This vast land that has no access to it. And if you want to bring illegal drugs or really a bad actor coming across the border, this is a place where they're going to come. And also, I've seen the border in Israel where they're worried about people crossing and bringing bombs in and stuff. And they have a similar type of construction where they build a road along the border with a security fence with a lot of sensing equipment, and they have patrols so that anytime something's detected along the border, they can quickly react. We don't even have a road in place down there. And again, it's hundreds and hundreds of miles of open space that's very hard to get to.
And I know another thing topping headlines is the recent news of Trump signing an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education.
Right.
Is this something that you think will hurt or help Arkansas schools?
I think in the long run it will actually help Arkansas schools. I think it will help states all across the country because it's not eliminating necessarily programs or funding that Congress has put in place. It's looking at how those programs and funding are administered. You know, the Department of Education came along in the Carter administration. We made it all the way up into the 1970s without a Department of Education at the federal level. I served on a school board. I understand the strings that are attached with federal funding. So I saw where the Secretary of Education in Arkansas was saying nice things about getting the federal bureaucracy out of the federal education funding. And I think in the long run, local school districts in the state are going to be better off.
And also, speaking to your education background, you said you served on a school board. I know that your Focus on Learning Act is something that kind of mirrors what our governor is doing here in Arkansas, trying to reduce cell phones in the classroom. What problems do cell phones in the classroom pose for students?
So the Focus on Learning Act is something that Senator Cotton and I worked on together. And so my wife's a teacher. I have a lot of family members that are teachers or administrators. And it's a distraction. Cell phones are a distraction. I don't think that's breaking news to anybody, but we want to understand exactly how much of a distraction it is. I was meeting with somebody yesterday, and their daughter is type 1 diabetic and has uses their cell phone to monitor their diabetes. There's certain reasons why you definitely need the cell phone in there, but we want to see the detriment to education that these cell phones are causing because of the distraction. There's some anecdotal evidence that would say that it's definitely a better learning environment if you don't have the cell phones, but what the Focus on Learning Act does is it requires the Surgeon General to do a study across the country to really be able to quantify those effects so that states like Arkansas and local school districts across the country can decide whether they want cell phones in the classroom or not.
Is there anything else that you're working on that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, we're still working on the big Fix Our Forest Act that we got passed on a huge bipartisan vote early this year. One of the first bills that the new House passed, and it's over in the Senate. Fortunately, it got assigned to Senator Bozeman's Ag Committee. He's already had a hearing on it, and I would love to see that bill get signed into law soon.
All right, Representative Westerman, thank you so much for joining me here today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.